Pac-Man saying, "What team takes 10 years to rebuild?" LOL.
The teams, whatever teams that TJ manages, obviously.
Okay, look at the Buffalo Sabres, look at the New Jersey Devils,
Okay.
look at the Arizona Coyotes, look at all these miserable teams that it takes so long to rebuild for, Grump.
Okay, but it's because they got the wrong people in place. How long did it take the Rangers to rebuild? 3 years?
Rangers are different. The scenario is different, Grump. We're not having a guy like Adam Fox come and say, "Hey, I only want to play on Long Island." Here we go.
Milano, he likes the Islanders.
Yeah, I heard Sonny Milano and Adam Fox are on comparable levels, Grump. We don't have players like that walking up and knocking and pounding on our. We don't have a guy of Artemi Panarin saying, "Knock, knock, 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 knock. Hey, I want to sign here and play for the Islanders."
Can I just say why people don't say they want to play for the Islanders?
Why, Grump?
Because we're not exciting to watch. When kids grow up, they hear click. Islanders click. Let's put on some other game. Oh, this one? Yeah. I'd rather watch this Kaprizov guy up in Minnesota. Yeah, okay. Who do we got to watch it now? Anders Lee. Shit. I can stand out in my backyard and do just as good as he does. He looks like a tree that's been growing there for 25 years. No, I'm sorry.
Man. Christ almighty. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams it takes a long time to rebuild for. I mean, think about it, until Florida had success. Florida was in a perpetual rebuild state, too. A lot of teams live in a perpetual rebuild state as opposed to continual success.
Like anything else, okay, sometimes you rebuild and it fails, and sometimes you do it and it works. And it's dependent on the people that are running the rebuild.
That's right. And see, look at you mentioned Florida. Yeah, Florida was terrible, but now they got the right guy in charge. They had Quinville as coach, which believe me, he really turned that team around. It was Quinville, not Zito. All those guys were there when Talon was the GM. Okay, it was Quinville. You got to have the right GM and coach. It's all from top down. We had the right guy for a couple of years. He's finished now. You got to get a new guy on top. Nothing wrong with that.
I am talking about a possibility of a 10-year rebuild, and you look at me like there's no fucking way.
Rebuild.
You act like there's no freaking way that a 10-year rebuild can transpire.
It's not going to be a 10-year rebuild. I don't care what you
look
say.
At fucking Columbus. Has Columbus ever fucking taken a step out of the level of mediocrity that they've had? Rebuilds sometimes can last because they freaking fail. The likelihood that a rebuild will fail is more likely than a rebuild will be successful.
I can say I've never seen you this.
But that's anything in
because
sport.
Everybody just fails to okay, that's everything. When you go ahead and rebuild from scratch, the likelihood that you will fail is much higher than the likelihood you will succeed. And by doing so, I'm saying you're going to at least fail once during this upcoming rebuild, and you're going to have to rebuild again.
Only one team wins a cup every year. There's a reason for that.
I think if your team is in contention to win a division, or your team is saying, "Hey, we're finishing in top 4 in the conference," you're not. That's a success. Hey, you've been successful. You have. Look how long it's taken this Ottawa Senators team to rebuild. That team was on top of the freaking world, Eastern Conference Finals. Look how long. They're in year number 6 now of that rebuild.
Okay. Well, the New York Islanders won a Stanley Cup in 1983, and now we're on a 39-year rebuild. We haven't won anything since then.
Yeah, the next rebuild's only going to be 5. Trust me. For certain. Trust me. Look how long that Detroit rebuild's been taking. You know how long that Detroit rebuild's been taking, grumpy old man?
A long
They
time.
made the playoffs how many years in a row? Oh, yeah, hanging on to that last little freaking thread. They're on year 5 or 6, or they're in year 6 or 7 of that rebuild. And look like things go. Look how long that rebuild for Buffalo took.
You got to have the right guy.
And that's why Detroit brought Eisenman back, to bring in the right person to do the job.
How long do you think the rebuild in Chicago is going to last? They're on year what? They're on year 3 already or year 2 or 1 or 2 of this rebuild. They try to throw a few extra people. When's the last time Chicago made the postseason? They're still they were grasping at straws trying to keep things together. How long do you think a rebuild like that's going to how long that's going to take? Giving up on 23-year-old, giving up on young Kirby Doc. How long do you think a rebuild like that's going to take? I'm just saying the likelihood the rebuild will fail is much higher than the fact that the rebuild will be successful.
Can I speak to the Chicago thing? Probably a little bit longer than they probably initially envisioned, I would say.
A lot of problems.
How about Anaheim?
A lot of issues happened in Chicago.
Yes, that's right.
How about Anaheim? How long did Anaheim's rebuild take? Right, they had that fantastic squad of Corey Perry, Getzlaff, Bobby Ryan. How long has that rebuild been taking? They're still in rebuild mode.
Okay.
This is my point. Rebuilds are the likelihood they're going to fail is much higher than they're going to be successful. Strap yourself in for a 10-year rebuild, ladies and gentlemen, and you're going to come back 10 years from now.
I'm sorry. You're making me laugh. I like you get really animated. You get on top of the screen. It's funny.
It's because I'm usually speaking to this up here and not down here. So you have to forgive me. I'm still trained to do this right here. I'm not looking at myself, so I have no idea what it looks like.
You're crazy. You look like you're insane, borderline insane, and maybe somebody slipped. Just like what was that thing that in Russia they slipped some type of poison into the guy, and they was slowly poisoning him to death. I'm worried about you over there. I don't know what the heck's going on over there.
People call me a negative Nancy. Look at how these rebuilds have been for teams that have gone through a similar time period.
I get it.
Okay, but does that mean you should never try to rebuild?
No. What I'm saying here is if you should not be signing and further digging yourself in, we're in a hole. I understand that. I'm fine still going after if we're staying flat, right? We're not digging ourselves further in the hole. I'm fine with us going after it for this year. I really am. I know that's the expectation. If we're adding Kadri and a contract like that to JT Miller, you've taken 2 more shovelfuls or 3 more shovelfuls into this freaking hole that we're digging. And when you lose other guys like Dobson or Romanoff, you're just further shoveling yourself into a hole.
Can I tell you something right out of both these? You really want to know the real key to a rebuild? Is to be the worst team for 2 or 3 years. The worst team.
We've done that.
So you are right there picking the best freaking player.
We've done that. We just don't win the lottery. think about how long it took.
The one year we were the worst team in the league, we did win the lottery, and we got John Tavares.
How'd that
now,
work?
That being said, you're making it sound much more dire than you need to. If the Islanders listen to me, they won't. But if they did, there is an easy way to transition from this old group of forwards to a new group of young, more energetic forwards while still having your defense core maturing and all in the prime of their career at the same time. But you have to just stop signing older guys. You got to stop that. Move some of your old – if you can move a Pajot for a first-round draft pick, let's say at the deadline, you can move a Mayfield for a first and a second because of his contract. That's how you build it up. Okay, because we have a glut of forwards. This way you give the Ratus a chance to come up and play. You bring up a Simon Holmstrom so everyone can see what I see, that he absolutely sucks and is not part of the solution. Okay, you can do stuff like that. Then you're transitioning away because in 2 years, all those forwards are going to be out of contract. You don't sign them back. Then you can bring in some younger players via trade, via whatever, and now you have your draft picks starting to mature together at the same time. Then you have a Barzell who's going to be the leader of your team going forward, who's going to be, in the prime of his career, 27, 28 years old. You have an Oliver Wahlstrom. You have, if you don't trade him, a Beauvillier, he's got a great work ethic, right? Those are the type of guys you need. You got a Kyle McLean from the minor leagues. There's quite a few players we have who could be part of the solution. Yes, we need to transition away from the veterans. But the way that defense is built, we don't have to worry about defense, particularly after the guys that we drafted this offseason. I'm not even worried about defense or goaltending. It's the forward group. Transition away from the old, go to the new. If you're going to make any trades, trade for younger players who are going to be part of the solution going forward, not older guys.
Because if, in fairness, if the team has solid defense and a great goaltender, they will compete.
Yes.
Okay. They will stay competitive. It's cycling out the front line and the offense and figuring out how to do that, by the way, on the fly.
Yes.
There are teams that can do it on the fly if you draft properly.
Yep.
Then you can feed the beast and just keep cycling.
That's right.
Well, the good thing is now that we've got, you've got 2 very deep draft classes this year and next year. I'm glad that we're not taking any of those because I could firmly believe that we're going to trade away more draft capital
Can't do that.
What?
Can't do it.
We are. I told you this last year, and I made that tweet 5 months before the draft. I said, we're trading, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself. We're trading away draft capital in this year's draft to double down on a team that's too old. And we did that. And guess what? If we're on playoff contention, we're trading away. If we're in a playoff spot or close to a playoff spot, guess what, Grumpy? We're trading away more draft capital this year at the trade deadline to continue to double down on this team.
Well, I'm just saying that
I see the writing on the wall, and I'm terrified.
Okay. Now, do you have a 1-story or a 2-story house?
1 story.
Okay, thank God, because I feel like I'm talking you down off the ledge, but it's not much of a fall if you fall out that window.
Grumpy, I don't fall with grace, Grumpy. So this like little foot-long drop off of the off of the stair step is going to kill me.
Okay, I just think there's a way to do it because your defense is young enough. It's not. I mean, we traded away the number 13 pick. You got a kid who's 22 years old. It's not like he's 32, which that would have driven me in crazy, like trading for the F- or trading for Pajot or trading for Andy Green or, all the other guys who are in their mid to late 30s giving away draft picks. This kid's 22.
Thank you.
He's going to be with your team potentially for 10 years. And you don't need to worry about that defense pairing. You really don't, even though I think Pulak and Pelech have taken a step back from 2019, they're still a really good pairing together. That's 2 rock solid pairings with Sorokin. Let's say you have Hutton, because like I said, I'm moving Mayfield regardless. I'm moving Varlamov regardless at the deadline. Anything to get more kicks at the can going into the draft. So I'm ready to make that transition. You can do it both ways. Even if you sign a Kadri in 2 years, I don't like 7 years, but in 2 years, the majority of the older guys on this team are out of contract. You never sign them back. That's how you can do it. Does Lou Lamoriello or whoever is going to be in charge of then have the mental acuity to do that? I don't know. Are they even thinking that way? I don't know. But that's a way you can do it and stay competitive and transition to the next period where you don't have to go full tank because your defense and your goaltending is set for years. I mean, injuries can happen. Performance can go up and down. But, I mean, I love their defense and their goaltending. Their forward group is a nightmare.
Like I said, we do have 2 forwards coming that I like a lot, and I still have belief in Wallstrom. So, I mean, there are pieces there. And if you sign Barzal long-term, he's still young. So we can cycle out those old guys, like he's saying, and whether it's free agency or trade or whatever it is. And this is the one thing about I'm fine with trading the number 13th overall pick when I'm getting a young player. In fact, I like that even better because he's already gone through 2 years of growing pains where it's the hardest part of your learning curve in the NHL. We skipped that.
How come I have to agree with Tommy Baffy today? You know how that appalls me to agree with anything he says. I think he's come around to my way of thinking. That's what I think it is.
Is that what it is, huh, Grumpy?
I think so.
Could be.
Here's the thing. I don't disagree with what we should do, not what we're going to do, though, which is, again, that's the issue at hand. Now, and I will say this, right? People are going to call me, oh, man, you're jumping to the worst possible scenario.
Well,
here's
you are.
Things are never as good as they are. They're never as bad as you think. Do you think it's a possibility if we're in a rebuild when contracts of Noah Dobson and contracts of Romanov come up? Do you think it's a possibility that they don't want to re-sign with the Islanders? Do you think that's a possibility? Because I very well think that's a possibility.
Okay, but they're under contract for what, another 5 years?
Let's say they sign a bridge deal, right? Because if we're bringing in guys like Kadri and guys like a JT Miller, there's a lot of contracts to fit out of the books. Even if you're getting rid of Bailey, Bavillier, that's a lot lot you're fitting out of the cap.
Nelson.
Okay, they're not getting rid of Nelson. They're getting rid of
his contract's going to expire in 2 years.
Do they want to sign back? It's something.
Nelson and Leo, what? They have 3 years left on their deals.
Do they want to sign back?
Nelson
has in a spot where we're rebuilding. Will guys like Dobson, Romanov want to sign back with the Islanders?
That depends.
I mean, but they're under.
There's many factors, as I said, into signing contracts. It depends.
Our best case scenario is to all hook them up with a nice Jewish girl from Long Island to make sure that they don't want to leave, right? That's the best case scenario we have to keep them here.
Could be an Italian girl.
Anybody, a Long Island
Yeah,
girl who
yeah,
doesn't want to
yeah.
leave. That's our best case scenario to keep this.
A lot of
I'm
those
just saying
long,
it's a very real possibility.
I'm going to say a lot of those Long Island girls do not like to leave Long Island and don't
They
like to
don't.
leave their families.
They don't.
I don't get that.